Hello everybody, welcome back to Language, Litigation, and Integration. We pick up today with some current events. As always, my name is Brad. My constitutional rights are violated. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution gives you a right to your writings and discoveries. Just in the same way there's laws that make you pay taxes, there are laws that make you pay more taxes. It's kind of the whole thing the country was founded on, right? No taxation without representation. And so I have a right to my writings and my discoveries. Additionally, the Fifth Amendment gives you a right to just compensation for private property, my discoveries, used for public use. So as I sit here, continuing, going on year 10 of watching literally everyone in fundamental science. If you're watching this video, you can check out my series, From Rhythm to Algorithm. That is the core derivation of my research. We solve a whole slew of different things in mathematics and physics, but in reality, it's the derivation of what logical structure can be. And so it's proven and demonstrated a lot more poignant results than any one open mathematical problem. It's even like it's a proofing structure. It's demonstrating what a proof can be. And so over here we talk about things in current events, but the primary function is to bring to light that my constitutional rights are violated. I am owed a lot of money for my research, and in addition to the actual money that the research is worth, I've been restricted from having any sort of income for my entire adult life. It is all illegal, but I also live in a time when no one seems to think their job is actually their job, meaning law enforcement doesn't enforce the law. People who teach physics and mathematics who have been aware, just to some names, Sean Carroll, Eric Weinstein, Lex Friedman, Sabine Hasenfelter, Brian Keating, names that you can Google around, or if you're watching this video, look around on YouTube, the big names within the public science discourse field. They're all profoundly well aware of my work, particularly Sean Carroll. He's in the research field as well as the public discourse at a level where he's probably like one of the first 5 people that really knew what my research was. And so it's all illegal. It's all a violation of my rights. It has caused me grave bodily harm. It has deprived me of all financial compensation for my property. And it's taken away my life. It just straight up has. And so that remains the overwhelming, predominant focus of this lecture series, and a focus on the law and the history aspects. So the From Rhythm to Algorithm is mostly the core science. It's 95% science, with some reference to mathematical history, but just straight up, if you want to derive all of mathematics, we derive a lot more than that. And so you can go check that out. The point being is this section is to focus on the law, the history, and just really anything else that, again, logic is more comprehensive than numerics, right? Numbers or calculation is what most people think of as mathematics, but mathematics is theme. Like literally we've derived the structure of language. And so if you spell mathematics, it spells out thematics. And so that's just one of a profound amount of results we've generated. And so we respond to current events. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about today was is just like the lack or the inaccessibility of journalism, right? I'm a citizen sitting here, I'm a grown adult, I'm in a household with other adults, there's no children around, and so I go to try to find Donald Trump posts a picture of Obama's as apes. So classic, again, we're back into the carnival land. I mean, we're already in carnival land. That's the whole introduction, because I don't have constitutional rights, and I made a whole lecture series about not having constitutional rights. And no one thinks, hey, we should remedy that situation, to the point where I've asked for just money behind closed doors. And if you're watching this on YouTube, people have, because of the nature of my research, it directly involves classified information. And so I'm talking people moving in around you and your neighbors knowing who you are and talking to you in person, and still just no one physically giving me money or giving me a time frame as to when they would acknowledge my research. And frankly, on a personal perspective, I view this as now, again, if you would say, hey, Brad, we're going to contact you in like 5 years, you would just give me like that, like any sort of interaction would be like the dam breaking open, I'd be done. And so I'm even like, I have no personal expectation of any sort of direct interaction. I can't, there's no way to stabilize income. It's just destroyed my whole entire life. But back to the current events, but so trying to be a journalist, right? It's like I'm trying to find this video of whatever Trump posted about Obama's being apes. And so you can't like find source data. And I've come across this a lot with like I try to find like the actual video of like Charlie Kirk's death, again, as a reporter, home journalist, but trying to report on the news. And you can't like find the actual data. And so it's just so frustrating to be like, you know, again, I'm adult, my accounts are all signed in as me. It's not like I'm doing something funny with my like internet traffic. And I just can't like find the sources of like the actual events. They say Trump posts this picture, I want to go see this picture, this video. They say this is this video of, you know, a violent event, but I'm an adult. I mean, like all news stories to me, like mainstream news, to me shouldn't be like censored at all. But if you want to continue to do that for whatever reason, like just a very clear, you know, full video here, click here, full bit of data, whatever, report, click here, no editing, no censorship, just whatever the reporters that are at the news station looking at reporting on the news, that is directly available to all public people. That again, I don't think it should be censored whatsoever, but certainly again, like one click away. And so regardless, is my point is I couldn't find this video, right? I just see a bunch of people reporting on it, and I'm watching CNBC on the stock terminal, and this stuff is just coming across, again, carnivally stupid. But I want to see the video. So it's something that's not even like graphic violently or anything, but you can't find the freaking video. And so I Google it, and after like 5 minutes, I'm just like, what is going on? But again, I've come across that again with things that involve violence, but it just like the Charlie Kirk murder, but any sort of violence is just, you can't, they'll report it on the news, but you don't like see the, you know, even put like this is graphic or something, but like, it's the news. Like, I mean, this is what human behavior is. This is why it's on the news. And to censor that, to do what? Well, kids might see it. It's like kids are exposed to the real world anyway. Point being, as a good faith journalist trying to report on the news and you can't find raw source data is just the most bizarre thing ever. But I did not see the actual video. But I just see such, like, the fact that these things are hitting the news as some big news story is just bizarre to me. It's like, you know, obviously the response is, he posted, the president in his great office posted something so racist and profound that was just, this decorum is terrible. It's like, and Trump's committed actual crimes. He's been convicted of those actual crimes. There's been no real recourse for any of that. As we've documented in the introduction, there are no laws for anybody. It's just, somehow, some way, the laws work for some people sometimes, but if you're not in one of those groups, it doesn't matter at all. You see that with Trump's behavior. You see that with a variety of different political people's behavior on both sides, meaning not Democrat and Republican, but the haves and the have-nots, right? I'm sitting here without constitutional rights. I can contact a bunch of Sean Carroll. You can go look at his recent Ask Me Anything talking about the killings of the ICE agents, which those are murders, and then he won't open his mouth and talk about the crimes being committed against me. So it's just a free-for-all. I mean, there is no level of responsibility, of accountability, of doing the right thing. It's just people saying, this offends me and it's practical enough for me to respond to, which is understandable. I mean, it's not like I can sit here and say, there's a kid in Africa starving right now, I can do something immediately to help him. You can't. Right? So like, there is a practical aspect, but when you have a platform and you have a job as a physicist or as a law enforcement agent, here's the Constitution, here's the property that's being destroyed from me. Right? If I go and walk into Walmart right now and steal $1,200, I get a felony, I go to jail today, as I should. And then I say, hey, look, here's 30 different people committing profoundly more crimes. And then it just like doesn't count. And so I could not see, or the actual the action of calling, again, such a trivial thing making the news, this moral virtue signaling, oh my goodness, the White House initially defends it, and now currently, again, it's like 12:33, so they took it down. But again, I still couldn't see it. It's just such a low-level story to report on. But I guess it was the Lions sleep tonight, and it was the picture of the Obamas, like photoshopped over monkeys. Obvious racism, black people, monkeys, ha 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 ha. And so it's just like it's not like some super aggressive racist joke. It's not like the most cliche racist joke you've ever heard before. No one's really getting that offended about seeing a black person being called a monkey. If you're a black person and you've probably heard, again, that joke is probably so played through, it's not even like, it's just like, wow, dude, you're trying to be racist and that's what you could come up with? Like, no one's having a real reaction to it. So just, why is this being reported on the news? I think the news story from all of this is how trivial, right? This overall news cycle where we just have breaking news every 5 seconds is because, like, no, we don't. Right? Breaking news doesn't happen all that often. When any news story occurs, you should just report on it as is. There should be no censorship. If there is, it should literally be like, adults, click here, and then you see everything. But then we're back to, we have the Epstein files. What's going on with that? It's like, clearly that guy didn't act, like, you get on the news and it's like, Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide, and you just kind of like chuckle almost, like, no, we didn't. It's like we're at this comedically stupid level of awareness where everyone, like, technology is still so new in terms of human behavior, but it's like you have these generations where, again, even like the baby boomers did not have like the internet immediately. Like, I saw that come up with my parents in terms of like the progression of getting a cell phone. And so it's like now we're at a time where it's like all of your actions are immediately seen by everybody, but you're still just like having individuals that progress their careers and their entire life's behavior is predicated on, anything on the news is true. And I can just say, nuh-uh, really loud, and it like doesn't count. But then you have, like, again, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. Like, I mean, nobody's out here seriously thinking that. And then the newscasters come on and say, he died by suicide. It's like, what are we appealing to there? Like, what's going on with that? But that's going on. So Bill Gates, he's getting some good press on that. Melinda Gates comes out and is like, oh no, my husband is diddling kids or not diddling kids. So then the actual content of the files, it's like the files are like 10 million pages long. Half of, like, all of it's redacted. So I can't even tell, like, I haven't taken any time to, like, look through them. I don't care. Child pedophilia is immediate death penalty to me, but it has to be 100% any crime before the determination of punishment has to be 100% guilt. That has to be established. And so it's just, we're in this part of like convolution. Everything is so, I don't know what, I briefly scroll Reddit. That place is such a infestation of insecurity and woke madness that it just seeps through my cell phone, all of the liberal, yes, we need to do social justice warrioring. It just like oozes into me. Again, I can't emphasize enough, I'm not a Republican, but then you can't even have a conversation where you state one thing and people don't have an immediate knee-jerk reaction to what you just said. And so it's just like, sweet. This is the American dream, baby. It's really rocking. So it looks like Bill Gates is doing some extracurricular pedophilia activities, which is disgusting. Melinda Gates is like, I'm under some sort of NDA and a lot of money is involved, so the details speak for the details of themselves. And I'm glad to be away from that. So no real denial, but like NDAs and stuff. And so then you're like, back to the news, like, what are the facts? Like, where are the adults? And that doesn't exist. And everyone's like posturing because we have to cover our asses, and people just like assume that's natural. Then we say the law, the law, the law. And then that doesn't really count either. So yeah, we kind of got like pedophiles not killing themselves, and everyone knows that, but it's just like, yeah. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, everyone else mentions not relevant. And then other people are like, anybody that's even kind of relevant or mentioned in these names is definitely pedophile or not pedophile. And so you like, I don't know what's going on there. Definitely obvious. Some bullshit. I'm trying to stop saying obvious so much. I just feel like anytime I say obviously, it's like self-validation that it should be obvious, but the reason I just said obvious is that it's not. And I don't know. I'm just doing the best I can over here. And so Bill was accused of, or some sort of transmission. Jeffrey Epstein wrote to himself on a note that Bill Gates needed STD medicine to give to Melinda because he was diddling a Russian prostitute. Now again, I don't know if that was a child Russian prostitute or if that was a consensual interaction or if that happened, but that's kind of what's floating around in sentiment these days. But I just have the died by suicide LOL to the 69th power as always. We had another big, Billie Eilish is back. And again, it's relevant because again, I've been documenting the violation of my rights since like Billie Eilish has come up. Like 2017, I think is when she came up. But I remember the Bad Guy song, like really just going from, I think she recorded that in her like actual like childhood room, and it just like, but like that actual recording, audio quality, the one going viral. Regardless, she is now she gave away $11 million out of like a $50 million valuation because we have someone who has never had financial exposure to anything, which is, if you take the people on CNBC, they don't really know what they're talking about, like a lot of times. And then you look at our Treasury Secretary Bissent, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then our Congress Senator Warren's over there trying to get you with a gotcha, ha ha ha, and you're just like, wow, awesome. But Billie Eilish, she's speaking up after giving away an arbitrarily small amount of her pretty good, substantial personal fortune. And so, yeah, but now she is now the pillar for the celebrities to stand up for social justice. And so we ice out at the Grammys 2026. And now I don't even understand this reference. Like, obviously, it's like the ICE, the reference to the immigration control enforcement, ICE out. But like the actual terminology, like the slogan, I'm kind of like missing are we like icing them out? Like, are we referencing the physical object ice and making it cold, so we're making it cold out? Or we're just like directly acknowledging the ICE agents and saying, get out. And so I was there, I had my blue hair, I was ready to picket fence, but I was just logically confused by the slogan. We contracted too much syllability there. I wasn't sure what we were doing by icing out. So, but regardless, we were icing out the ICE agents, and Bad Bunny also spoke out as well. So both people who had legitimate come-ups. I've listened to a lot more Bad Bunny than Billie Eilish, but I'm not a music hater ever. Like, it's one of those areas where it's like, I've been asked if I'm a Swiftie before, and I'm like, sure, like, why not? It's like, there's a specific song, and anyone who's made music or listened to music has had artists they like and don't like certain songs, obviously. I just did it again. But the point being is, if, like, I don't know, I don't think there's like a musician I would say I don't like. But now we are being the social justice warriors. So we got that going on. That's super awesome. We had a rather strange story developing with the Savannah Guthrie. NBC News anchor referenced her briefly on a video yesterday. But her mom got snatched up, got kidnapped in Tucson, Arizona. At first, there was no suspects. Now we got some suspects. We had a ransom note leaked by TMZ, it seems. They requested millions in Bitcoin, and there was some blood found at the scene, and some cameras were destroyed, and I think there was some indication of a son-in-law was the last person to see her alive, at least. The kids come out, the adult children, Savannah and her siblings, released a video about, hey, we're trying to work with the, commenting on the actual, like, negotiation of a hostage, right? First thing you do is ask for proof of life. So that's what they do. Yeah, I think there's another relevant local news police chief discussing the case. He had some indication, but it seems to be like there's some stirring with maybe there's a suspect now. We get release of Alex Preddy's name, one of the two people killed in Minneapolis, along with Renee Good. We had Alex Preddy. We covered that as much as I wanted to comment on. Nothing new there, but we have Jesus Ochoa and Raimundo Gutierrez as our names for our border control ICE agents. That is definitely no irony there. Nothing going on there. Definitely 100% people that would not get discriminated or stereotyped as Spanish native or Latin native. Definitely not a Jesus Ochoa and a Raimundo Gutierrez. Those names are just definitely John Smith is the next. That was the other option for these two individuals. But as I stated, both of those killings, I've seen enough evidence for those to be prosecuted as second-degree-ish murder. But again, I think just by the nature of what law enforcement is that you have closer to what a first-degree murder charge would be for somebody where premeditation is relevant to the decision-making. Whereas in law enforcement, you're showing up armed to enforce the law. That is a different headspace to begin with than somebody saying, I'm going to go out and kill somebody. But I think because of the responsibility of what law enforcement is, you err closer, not error, but you construct statute closer to the punishments of first-degree murder, but just make the verbiage applicable to law enforcement's responsibility as protecting the peace of the public. We seem to miss that a whole bunch when we have our rallying Bovino and Homan rallying our troops to get them all hyped up to go calm people down and keep things peaceful. Little kind of, hypocritical and contradictory. But we have Janine Pirro says you will go to jail if you bring a gun in D.C. And she is the district attorney of Washington, D.C., the smallest U.S. state. I think is kind of relevant. I don't know the area that well. I've been there. But just in terms of like how many people are commuting where they're right next to Jersey or Virginia or somewhere else close. I actually, believe it or not, that region in geography is not that strong. But in just terms of like who is working throughout the DC area, obviously, I just did it again. But obviously, sometimes the word does have meaning. I just don't like when it just sounds goofy saying it so often. But the huge presence of governmental agencies, but just day to day, if you're traveling through the state, to me, it just seems, again, this full faith and credit clause would be applicable. Of you can't say, and she kind of walked back her statement saying something about you have to have a concealed permit or be in accordance with the local law, with the state law. Again, being the smallest state, there's some added consideration in my opinion. But again, even like state, again, the United States specifically, I mean, that's the one I've been exposed to the most. But again, full faith and credit should like apply way more uniformly. But it's one of those things where you see the gun community come out immediately and it's like, this is an attack on the Second Amendment, and really it's just a statement of saying, you have to have accordance with local laws or state laws. But it's just so, you go do anything, like I'm going to go fishing, and it's just like, make sure you abide by the city law, the municipal law, the state law, the country law. It's just like that just it feels way too cumbersome as a citizen in a variety of different aspects, just trying to live day-to-day things. Nothing extremely political. Can I take a loaded firearm and go get into like a screaming confrontation with law enforcement? It's just like, why are we doing that ever? It's just mind-boggling. But point being is, if the law is the law, it should establish what you can and can't do, and if you're within the bounds of the law, you should never have any expectation to be prosecuted for that. Practically, it's just a shit show. And that's for like the politically charged thing, specifically thinking Preddy going to the protest. Again, what are you expecting to accomplish having a loaded firearm at a protest? The law says you should be able to do it, and I would agree with you should be able to do it. Practically, what's it going to be accomplished? A law enforcement agent, if right, wrong, indifferent, starts doing something to you, you're going to pull out your gun and start taking on like law enforcement? I mean, it's just like there's no thought to it to me, where it's like, okay, it's more of this posturing, I can do this, so I'm going to. I can. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And now we're back at a cliche everyone's heard a million times. And so, with the practical assessment of how imperfect enforcement of law is, a lot of times, and unfortunately, as I started off with this episode and referenced like 4 times, the law doesn't like get enforced. It's just like and I'm doing like science. Granted, the stuff I do directly, I mean, it's as direct as it can be with classified information. But then that's why I was just saying I've been asking for just like money behind closed doors for a long time now. But point being is, District of Attorney Janine Pirro comes out and to me, that's a valid statement. All she did was say, the local laws are relevant, which the practical enforcement, that's how it works, right? You go to a different state, even staying with gun laws, right? They have anything to do with the gun community, you'll have reciprocity laws immediately posted. If you can carry, if you have a permit in this state, is it respected in this state? Is it respected in this state? And for the practical running of the United States, the full faith and credit should be way more applicable practically. I mean, it's already written in the Constitution, but it's just like there's no consistent enforcement of any law, like literally of like any law that I've ever seen. And so She gets pushback from the Second Amendment community. And I just, to me, that was a no story. And that pretty much brings us to the talking points of today. Again, my constitutional rights continue to be violated. Anything else on the DC? Just is an area where it's the capital of the United States, really small area, heavy presence of governmental agencies. I just don't know how many like citizens are going day to day where. To me, it should be effectively no different. It just is, again, another practical consideration where if you don't want a bunch of people running up or having guns around certain government places, but there's government facilities everywhere. Again, with this exposure to these intelligence agencies, you have buildings that aren't marked, you have buildings that are marked, you have buildings that are 90% used for legitimate functions, 10% not. You have buildings that are 99% used for legitimate functions, and an elevator shaft won't be. It'll be an entrance point to somewhere else. And so the underground facilities that exist are tremendous, both built and found are tremendously out there. And so that's not really relevant to our talking points. But I won't take it any longer than I have. Thank you for watching. My rights continue to be violated. Please somebody pay me. To the law enforcement agents, to the secret science team doing this weird shit. Just a little bit of money. Like, I have no agenda. I'm not trying to do anything. I don't even care about my research anymore. I really don't. I just don't get to live my life to any extent at all. Giving up on having a career and a family, but just a little bit of money to go on like hiking trips and go fishing would be a jump in quality of life that I have never experienced. And that could truly be accomplished at like $55,000 of stable income a year, knowing that the IRS isn't going to try to extort me because I don't have constitutional rights. Then I sell a house. And there's, again, this is back to the practical aspect, right? If I don't have to, I can't even speak the way I want to speak right now, but if I don't have to sell my Bitcoin under duress illegally, right, and I clear $4 million, which on this series has been documented, and it's a bona fide fact, then I still, I would even have paid taxes under duress. But if I get anything from the IRS at this point, again, I don't have constitutional rights. And so if I would have cleared the $4 million and then been able to pay $800,000, still would have been completely illegal, 100 million% illegal, but then I would have had the peace of mind there's nobody out there where something could occur. Meaning I get a letter in the mail saying, this is a taxable event, you didn't pay this. I don't have constitutional rights. My entire life's been destroyed. I'm contractually owed $12 million for the solutions of my research. The income potential that I have lost because of not acknowledging what I've done is literally, you can't even begin to meaningfully articulate it. And so that's why I make these videos that post for even trying to file something. And so to, again, directly to the people that are depriving me of my rights, you see my name pop up on any sort of financial document, you take it away. Every time that doesn't happen, you get a profound and as severe crime as I can say, and I can't even say how severe it can be on camera. And so, but again, I don't even have the peace of mind now. Like, if the money that I have now, I could manage it literally sitting on treasury bonds, north of 3%, a whopping maybe $2,000 a month. I could still go camping. You would not need to interact with me. You would not need to give me anything. I would just need some sort of nudge somewhere to know that the IRS isn't going to send me some letter. Because I'm not worried about this high-level people. It's just a discrepancy on a tax form. I don't file anything because there's no meaningful way for me to write this shit down on a piece of paper. And the crime is so severe against me where the expectation is for you. I've lost my whole life. Like, why am I even sitting here talking about it? But that is my headspace that I'm at. It's like I would just be going to like national parks and state parks and doing my hikes and my walks and still making content, but I just have a tripod and a little camera. I can do that anywhere with an internet connection. And that's what I want to do. Even under the context, again, of never having the expectation of actual publication, never having a real career, never having a family, and at this point, without acknowledgement of my capacity, the ability to have a family is non-existent. For the fact that I'm not around people to find a girlfriend, and then two, if people don't understand, the ontological shock response to me is so intolerable at this point. I just avoid any interaction possible. And so I continue to ask for a little bit of money just to do that. Again, like I said, because if I get a letter in the mail that I have to respond in 30 days and I'm out hiking somewhere, right? It's just like, it's a practical thing. But I've documented this, and that's another thing where it's, I can't speak on certain things, and again, within reasonability. But worrying about posting a video on YouTube, like criticizing Sean Carroll, which again, in the context of what has occurred, is the most reasonable thing ever. And in the manner in which I do it is extremely reasonable. But it's like I'm worried about like violating the terms of service for like one offhand insult and 1,500 videos of active derivation. And again, we've documented you guys didn't know what was occurring. This whole process has already occurred before. You have destroyed that much scientific history. And I'm just over here like trying to like not push any buttons to preserve as much as I can. Truly. And you guys still, by your actions, don't demonstrate that you understand that you even care. And at this point, it's just, people are just so stupid, arrogant, and insulated. They don't understand the amount of historical destruction that's occurring by not allowing me to demonstrate what this derivation process. And I'm getting the fundamentals down for sure, but then looking back when like Eric Weinstein's like, give yourself a break, dude. Again, purely can't because of practical financial reasons. Would have done so immediately. But then also to, again, it's a physical demonstration. And so it's like, you can't even really preserve the work in the way that you want to after doing this whole thing one time, with now that you guys have the explicit awareness that this whole thing happened as a kid too. So you've already lost an entire complete process of this occurring. You tortured me, and then I did it, proved again, speciality, and now I'm working through sensorality, and I still don't have like the mathematical community. I send them a box, and Tatiana Toro on camera, as we've documented, says, I never got the box. There was clearly a thing written, refused, on there. And at a big university, there's no way the mail clerk is sitting there making decisions of refusal of packages. So somebody fucked up, somebody did something to fuck it up, and now my property's damaged, and I still don't have the ability to preserve it. All right, go look at any academic sitting here on YouTube, and in the background they have a bookcase. The amount of books I'm looking to preserve is like one shelf of what they have sitting there. Right? I mean, it's just the most bizarro world that has ever existed. I continue, I don't care. The only thing I care about is not having any quality of life personally. I am me every day of my life. I know what I do. I know the impact it has historically, more so than you do. I don't get to live a day of my life. That's what makes me like, what the fuck is going on? And so that is what I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Please pay me some money. Allow me to be stable enough to eat, to sleep, and to work. That's it. That is really it. I've given up on anything else. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.